I've got something controversial to say, or at least I think it's controversial. The funeral scene in Andor may be my favorite in all of Star Wars history, and I'm not positive, but it's certainly one that's up there, and that's kind of surprising to me. I've loved Star Wars. I've been enamored with it for as long as I can remember. I first watched the movies when I was probably 3. I've had many favorite scenes, and for a long time, and arguably still, what I've loved most about Star Wars is this beautiful story of family told through myth. I love that Star Wars is essentially an opera or Shakespeare brought to life and combined with fantasy. I love how overdramatic so much of it is, and I really appreciate its status as a modern fairy tale. So it's why I love that scene so much in Episode 7 where Rey grabs the saber and Burning Homestead starts to play. But how do I square all that with Andor containing what may be my favorite scene in the entire franchise? Andor as a series which seems to exist in a completely different franchise than one featuring Yoda and Sidious lightsaber fighting in the Senate or Mortis gods or whatever else. Really, I think this is part of Star Wars' greatest strength, that the themes, the aesthetics, the setting of the universe is so well defined, is so iconic that it can support all of these different types of stories. But I want to talk about this scene in particular. Why do I love it so much? Well, I'm definitely going to talk about the quality of the speech, the acting, especially of Stellan Skarsgård, but let's start off with the basics. It's not very often in Star Wars that you actually get to know a planet and its people. Usually when you're introduced to a Star Wars planet, especially one in the Outer Rim, it's given a name, it's given, one of several archetypes, and it's sort of a vehicle for moving on to a larger story, with some exceptions, of course. But while Ferris has the trappings of sort of any generic Star Wars planet, where it excels is giving that planet personality. And not just personality, but community. We see Marva Andor from the beginning of this series. We see her health start to decline, and the people of Ferris take care of her however possible, especially when Cassian leaves. These are people who, in lesser shows, Star Wars or not, would fall into the background, but in this show, even if you don't recognize their names, you know their faces and you remember and you care. Andor also shows us a planet falling increasingly under Imperial occupation, and we know the real effects that has had on people's lives. Part of what makes the uprising on Rick's Road so powerful is because the people aren't standing up to a Death Star. They're not taking a strike against the Empire themselves. They're simply saying no to their material conditions. And there's the very real risk of death or torture in that resistance when there's only the slight hope for any sort of improvement. But it's symbolic. The Empire is everywhere. As Marva says,
"There is a wound that won't heal at the center of the galaxy. There is a darkness reaching like rust into everything around us. We let it grow, and now it's here. It's here, and it's not visiting anymore."
And I love that this speech happens as we're also reading for the first time Namek's manifesto. Namek, of course, was a character whose death was random and I guess ultimately meaningless, but he understood that this was a likely outcome, that the individual is dwarfed by the scale of the enemy, but that freedom is a pure idea, that even the smallest act of insurrection pushes our line forward, and that Imperial need for control is so desperate because it is so unnatural. Tyranny requires effort, it breaks, it leaks, authority is brittle, oppression the mask of fear. One single thing will break the siege. Andor is a show chock full of great soliloquies. One Way Out, about supporting the common man in the fight against tyranny, Nemec's manifesto, as I just mentioned, and of course the one I think most point to, aside from perhaps Marva's, Luthen's within the bowels of Coruscant. I really like Luthen's monologue as well. It is very dramatic in a Shakespearean sense. He is here fully monologuing to the audience, giving us an insight into his character. And while it's a deep moment, I think its greatest accomplishment is how it elevates the character of Luthen for his appearance during Marva's funeral. My favorite shot of Andor Season 1 is Luthen listening to the words of Marva and feeling the resonance.
There is a wound that won't heal at the center of the galaxy. The Empire is a disease that thrives in darkness.
She is saying something that he feels so deep within him to his core, which he probably has trouble saying himself. He realizes the kinship between himself, between the recently deceased Marva, and between the other people clearly being affected by her words. And given what we know of Luthen, he probably feels a little less alone in a fight which has usually felt impossible. And that's my favorite part of Marva's speech, seeing how it affects those who watch it. The boy who lost his father is finally pushed, even as a child, to stand up to the Empire. Community members lead their neighbors into what will, for some of them, be certain death. Finally, they decide it's time to say no. One of my other favorite moments of the scene is this moment between Mosk and Karn. These are two men who genuinely, I think, believed they were doing the right thing. They weren't initially a part of the Empire. They didn't sign up to be authoritarians. They started as a part of a corporate security force, and things have begun radically changing. One is okay with that. One embraces it. Mosk, less so. I love when Mosk, who we know is dedicated perhaps above all else to his people, looks to Karn because he clearly realizes that he's becoming something he doesn't like, or at least that's how I see it. So much in this scene is done just through people's expressions. And the combination of all that alongside the music and of course the excellent speech from Marva, it really ends up creating something truly powerful. Then at the end, Mosk is left alone with a drink, probably not to join the Rebel Alliance, but probably changed on a personal level by what he's just witnessed. And I think that sums up why I love this scene so much. Resistance to tyranny is more than just the Rebel Alliance. We see Marva in her final moments regretting not having done more, not having woken up early enough. We see her words resonate with the community, and we see them resist. Again, not the Rebel Alliance, but the community, the kid, the neighbor, the marching band, the funerary stone. Anyway, I'm very excited for Andor Season 2. I want to see this idea brought to the next level. There's the idea that if the rebels lost at Endor, if the plan had went well, that the Empire would have won, and I hope shows like Andor show that not to be the case. You know, I give canon a lot of flack, but it has had some great moments, even in The Last Jedi, a film that I don't like very much, or at least that I have issues with in the context of a trilogy. One of my favorite moments in Star Wars is also Yoda's message to Luke that we are what they grow beyond. As a dad, that resonates, as did, again, Burning Homestead in Episode 7, or going back to the originals, Vader's face, expressive behind a mask as he watches his son being tortured. I think that's the great thing about Star Wars. All these moments are so different, but they take place within one saga, within one myth, a fairy tale or a fable. And I hope down in the comments you can let me know some of your favorite memories or moments from all of Star Wars. A final one that I'll mention, just that last shot at the end of Return of the Jedi, the heroes together celebrating, a reminder of the true nature, I think, of this series, at least up to that point. Anyway, see you guys soon. May the Force be with you.